Ever feel like disappearing? Not to get revenge, not to prove anything, just to finally hear your own voice again. Ghost mode isn't about building in silence so you can return and shock the world. It's about disappearing from all the noise so you can reconnect with the part of you that's been buried underneath deadlines, expectations, and ego. I have gone ghost more than once. And when I finally did it the right way, it changed everything. Getting straight into it with tip number 1. Ghost for presence, not for power. There were years where I would take extended breaks from work over the holidays. 2, sometimes even 3 or 4 weeks at a time. And every time I'd tell myself this was finally my chance to rest. But that's not what actually happened. Instead of being present with my family, or with myself for that matter, I'd shift all the energy I was pouring into my job into a new side project. It was almost always something adjacent to what I had been doing up to that point. New app idea, a product concept, something I could maybe ship during the break and add to my resume or get some kind of, traction with. I told myself I was being productive. Really, I was just trying to prove something. To make the most of my time by doing something impressive. And that's what I've learned. If you go ghost just to produce something, you're likely worrying about the audience. Presence is the point. Stillness, your teacher. And until you stop performing, producing, you won't find what you're actually looking for. Tip number 2, set no outcome. This one's tough, especially if you're wired like I was. For years, anytime I'd stepped away from my day job, especially during those holidays that I mentioned, I'd quietly build this fantasy about how I could finally make real progress on some big, beautiful side project. I wouldn't just dabble or sketch, no, I would create entire milestone maps. Unreasonable ones at that. I'd see this break as a sacred window to finally build the thing, the next great app, the breakout project, the painting masterpiece that had been waiting for just a few uninterrupted weeks to finally emerge. And while I would often make progress, I wasn't really present. I saw family gatherings as interruptions, conversations as friction. Every meaningful moment became something I had to mentally push through so that I could get back to my timeline. Looking back, I was projecting myself so far into the future, I missed the only time that I actually had. The now. So when you go ghost, go without a destination. Stillness is not a detour. Stop setting outcomes. Start listening to what shows up instead. Tip number 3, detox from influence. This past January, I left my phone powered off in a desk drawer for an entire month. It wasn't extreme. If I needed to use it, it was still there. But I had to physically get up, usually, go to another room, turn it on, and wait. And that little bit of friction changed everything. Most of the time, it just wasn't worth it, The payoff that I thought I needed, the dopamine, distraction, connection, suddenly felt optional. But what really shocked me was how often I instinctually reached for it. I'd be walking around the house and catch my hand just going into my pocket. Over and over again, I'd find myself shocked. Not just that the phone was missing, but that my body had been so trained to need it whenever life got quiet. That month helped me see how deeply wired I was to outsourcing my attention to podcasts, to messages, to social feeds, to ideas that weren't mine. When I finally stopped feeding that loop, something strange started happening. The present moment got louder. My thoughts, my breath, my intuition, they all had more space to speak. Going ghost isn't just about leaving people behind, it's about turning down the volume on the influence, long enough to hear what's been waiting inside of you all along. Tip number 4, track your energy, not your progress. So once I stopped setting those unrealistic milestones and put my phone away, I found myself with a kind of free time I hadn't felt in years. And instead of using that time to build or optimize or strategize, I went back to something I'd long put down: meditation. I started small, just 20 minutes in the morning, 20 minutes in the evening. A ritual of stillness to bookend each day. I used to tell myself, I didn't really have time for this. But what I didn't realize was that time wasn't the issue at all. It was noise. And once the noise dropped, I began to feel a deeper energy. My sleep improved, which helped, of course, but more than that, I noticed that my mind slowed down. Stressful moments didn't grip me in the same way they once had. The narratives that usually took over my day didn't hook me as hard. And all of it stemmed from a simple decision to stop measuring progress and start paying attention to energy, to how I felt, to what helped, to what drained me. And that one shift, tracking your energy instead of your progress, unlocked a level of potential I'd been too busy to notice. Stillness doesn't slow you down, it plugs you back in. So tip number 5, re-emerge as a mirror, not a megaphone. Historically, Januaries at work were always a little bit slow. People are still shaking off the holiday rust, But I've always come back with my hair on fire, trying to reassert momentum, pick up every loose thread, fill the silence with intensity and wild progress. But this past January, something was different. Instead of rushing to output, I focused on reconnection. I leaned into team meetings, prioritized rebuilding relationships, and gave myself permission to ease in rather than explode out of the gate. I even built a reading habit, to supplement my workflow, choosing material that encouraged stillness instead of urgency and productivity. And what I found was I was actually more effective. My energy was cleaner, my choices were more precise. The pressure that I usually applied was completely unnecessary. I wasn't louder, but I was clearer. And that's what I mean by being a mirror, not a megaphone. When you truly go ghost the right way, your re-entry doesn't need to be dramatic. It doesn't need a spotlight. The clarity will speak for you. Going ghost isn't some tactic. It's not a productivity hack, it's a reset. And the world won't hand you permission to take one. You have to claim that space for yourself. So here's your next step. Find a window of time in the near future, a real one, at least 2 to 4 weeks. Mark it in on your calendar. Set yourself as unavailable, protect it. This isn't time off, it's time in. And when that space gets close, come back to this video. Let it remind you what this season is really for. Let it shape the kind of stillness that you're stepping into. If you've gone ghost before, what did you learn from that time away? Or if you've never done it, what's stopping you? Drop it in the comments for me. I'd love to hear what this stirred up for you. And if this resonated, there's something else that I want to show you. Something that often surfaces once the silence has taken root. It's quieter, but deeper. And it might be the beginning of something you haven't let yourself want in a long time. It's right here. Thanks for watching.